Imagine, just for a second, blowing out the candles on your 400th birthday cake. Sounds like pure science fiction, right? Well, buckle up, because right now, scientists are actively predicting breakthroughs that could lead to indefinite, healthy human life. In this explainer, we're going to dive deep into the biological keys researchers are on the verge of unlocking and the absolute terrifying systemic shockwaves those breakthroughs will send crashing through our society. But hey, before we start popping champagne to celebrate eternal youth, you really need to ask yourself a pretty shocking question. What if your retirement age was pushed back to, say, 465? If you're living for 5 centuries, the harsh economic reality is that you might be looking at an endless loop of labor. I mean, would living forever actually just mean working forever? Let's uncover the truth. Chapter 1. The 500-Year Human Lifespan. Let's establish something right out of the gate here. Extreme longevity, it is not just a fantasy anymore, it's a biological mechanism being actively studied and mapped. To really get how this works, we have to look at a concept called negligible senescence. The term was coined by biogerontologist Caleb Finch, and it basically describes a state where an organism just doesn't show evidence of biological aging. There's no measurable functional decline, and the actuarial aging rate essentially drops to 0. Simply put, you don't become more likely to die just because you get older. You totally defy the chronological decay that we humans are just so used to. Chapter 2. Biology of Immortal Organisms. Now you might be thinking, come on, this is impossible in nature. But it's actually a proven reality across diverse evolutionary lineages. Nature already has its immortals. Take the hydra, for example. It's this microscopic organism with stem cells that continuously divide, making it biologically immortal. Then you have the immortal jellyfish, which can literally reverse its maturation process when it gets stressed out. It just goes back to being a baby. And we can't forget naked mole rats, the first mammal ever identified to defy the Gumpert's-Makeham mortality law. Their mortality rate stays remarkably constant after maturity. Oh, and in the plant world, Utah's Pando aspen colony has a root system that's estimated to be 80,000 years old. It's absolutely wild. And even if we aren't talking about total cellular immortality, the lifespans of some complex organisms out there are staggering. The Greenland shark naturally endures for 400 years. The ocean quahog clam can live for over 5 centuries. So the massive question here becomes, can we actually replicate this in ourselves? Chapter 3. Hacking the Human Aging Clock. This is where the fascinating field of geroscience comes in. Scientists are actively trying to hack these biological miracles and translate them into human medicine, and they're making some insane progress. In a completely groundbreaking study involving the MDI Biological Laboratory and other institutions, researchers managed to expand the lifespan of the C. elegans worm by 500%. 500%. If you were to translate that to a human scale, that's the equivalent of a person living somewhere between 400 and 500 years. So how on earth did they pull this off? Well, researchers zeroed in on 2 highly specific cellular pathways. First, the IIS pathway, which deals with insulin signaling, and second, the TOR pathway, which acts as a nutrient sensor. By genetically altering both of these pathways at the exact same time, they didn't just get a simple additive effect. They achieved what's called a synergistic effect. Basically, 1 + 1 didn't equal 2, it equaled 5. This combination effectively forces the cells to switch from a state of continuous growth into a state of hypermaintenance. And here is the kicker. Both of these genetic pathways exist in humans right now. But as incredible as this biological miracle sounds, it hides a really dark societal consequence. Experts are actively warning us of a terrifying scenario: longevity without security. I mean, think about it. What does an extra 400 years actually look like if our world just isn't built to handle it? Chapter 4. The Gerontocracy and Wealth Trap. Let's look at some stark warnings raised by historian Samuel Moyn regarding aging populations. Back in the 1900s, America's life expectancy hovered right around 40 years. That means our retirement systems, our career ladders, even our political institutions, they were all built for an era of short lives. If we suddenly transition to a 500-year median lifespan, those institutions are going to absolutely buckle under the weight of extreme longevity. Generational turnover, it would essentially freeze. And honestly, we're already seeing the beginnings of this. Longer lifespans naturally reshape who holds wealth and who holds influence. Just look at the data today. The top 10% of baby boomer households own 75% of their cohort's financial assets, while the bottom 50% own less than 2%. As people remain healthier for longer, they hold on to their senior roles and just keep accumulating assets over extended careers. This creates exactly what Samuel Moyn describes as a gerontocracy. This all builds to a mathematically chilling reality called the extreme wealth line. If you extend current lifespans out to 500 years, the power of compounding interest over multiple centuries would permanently lock in existing financial inequality. Because remember, early medical innovations always debut at a massive cost. That means the ultra-wealthy would almost certainly get these longevity treatments first, allowing an immortal elite to continuously compound their wealth for centuries, while the rest of society is just left entirely behind. Chapter 5. The 400-Year Workday. Which brings us to the absolute economic nightmare of actually trying to fund a multi-century life. Traditional pensions, they are already struggling today, but under this scenario, they would collapse entirely. Nations would likely be forced into notional defined contribution frameworks. This is a system where your accumulated savings account is converted into an annuity that pays out based on your remaining life expectancy. So if your remaining life expectancy is 400 years, your annual payout becomes mathematically diluted to almost nothing. So what is the real-world impact of all that dilution? It becomes an extended obligation. Economists point out that a much longer life could literally force you to delay retirement indefinitely. You might have to work for centuries just to avoid late-life poverty. And let's be clear, this system would place an incredibly unequal burden on women, who historically live longer but earn less and take more career breaks for family care. Without massive structural reform, a 500-year life isn't going to be a centuries-long vacation. It's a 400-year workday where you have to maintain elevated savings rates for hundreds of years. Chapter 6. The Psychological and Ecological Price. Finally, we have to look way beyond economics and talk about the absolute limits of our planet and the human mind. Our current reality is already precarious. We've got 8.3 billion people living in severe ecological overshoot. In a 500-year lifespan scenario, halting that generational turnover would trigger a rapid carrying capacity collapse, completely depleting our finite water, land, and minerals. To even survive, society might have to enforce extreme density-dependent limits, sparking terrifying debates over restrictive reproductive licensing. We're talking about a world where choosing to live forever might legally mean stripping your right to ever have children. And what about the brain? Let's say our cells can regenerate indefinitely. Can the human mind actually store 500 years of memories? Analysts studying this exact question warn of severe consequences, like complex post-traumatic stress and cognitive decay that could pathologically alter human psychology. A brain forced to endure centuries of accumulating experiences, endless relationships, and massive societal shifts, it might simply break down under the sheer weight of its own history. It could fundamentally alter what it even means to be human. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly powerful question. Is defeating death actually a trap? Look, we are standing on the precipice of biological miracles that could grant us centuries of health, but our economic, ecological, and psychological systems are entirely unequipped to survive eternity. If we don't drastically reform how our society functions before these treatments arrive, living forever might just become our greatest nightmare. So, what do you think? If the shot was sitting in front of you today, would you take it? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.